Perhaps there's no sport as internationally popular as this one. It's been dubbed the beautiful game by its throngs of flocking followers. Moreover, it's much more than merely a masterful match played by 11 players on a pitch. To some, it represents a sense of belonging, pride, and passion. We are going to get a kick out of the sacred sport, sometimes called soccer, on this week's episode of FYI. Welcome to For Your Info.
En inglés.
You got it. Hello, and welcome to another exciting edition of FYI. And I've been putting this one off. To put off es aplazar. Why? Well, I thought if I did this one in the first season, people would say I was biased, sesgado, because I could talk about this all day, every day. So that's why I held off. To hold off es esperar. I held off doing football and aviation. And since we did aviation already, you know what time it is, folks. It's time for kickoff, and I'm here with two wonderful friends of mine, two hosts of an awesome show on football or soccer. We'll talk about that in a moment. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tommy Haye and Ruben Palomero.
Thank you very much, Alberto.
Good to be here. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Hey. Welcome to both of you. It's a pleasure to have you here as football fans, football buffs. I want you guys to tell me a little bit about yourselves individually. We'll talk a little bit about how you guys got together to do the show, but tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, so the people who are listening, well, they can at least pinpoint who we're talking to over here. Let's start with you, Tommy.
So I was born in Glasgow in 1994, and I studied languages at university, and that's how I kind of came down this path of teaching and learning languages and making languages a big part of my life. It's just I've always liked them. So that's been one of the big passions of my life, and the other big passion is football. So football and languages, putting these two things together is sort of how we've ended up with this program at Vaughan, and we've been doing it for near enough 2 years now. I think this is the second year that we've been doing it, so we're approaching 100 episodes, so I'm really, really happy to do it. This idea of working and talking about football for work is really a dream for me, so yeah, that's it.
That's great as a language lover, and I happen to know your Spanish is really good, dude. Now, don't be humble. No time for humility now. What's your secret? Why do you speak Spanish so well? I mean, I'm saying it because we have most of the people who are listening are learning languages as well. Any advice?
It just became a big part of my life from really early on. I was studying French at school when I was a kid, and we had the option to choose another language. And I chose Spanish, and I was 16 when I started, and I just completely fell in love with it, and it became something every single day that I did. I had a teacher, he was an Irish teacher, he was from Derry in Ireland, and he told me about the Spanish football magazines as a good way of practicing. And that's when I discovered like Marca, Diario AS, things like that. So every day, probably since I was 16, I've read some kind of football related thing in Spanish or listened to the radio in Spanish. And then, yeah, basically that, just every single day of your life, do something related to that language.
So what you're saying, I mean, in essence, is expose yourself to the language and start with an arena, pun intended, something you enjoy. So in your case, football, the content is interesting to you already. So the language, you're going to want to figure it out, right?
That's it. Like modern language experts will always tell you this. How do we acquire language? And a great motor or a great vehicle for that is context. Context is the most important thing in terms of how you pick up a language. And if you have a context, which is something that you like, whether it's football, whether it's cinema, literature, whatever interests you, if you can combine that, or you can integrate that into your language learning, it makes a big, big difference. So that's basically it. Make it an obsession, Alberto. I think that's the key.
Find what you love and then let it kill you.
That's
In
it.
your case, footy or football or soccer, which, by the way, let's get this out of the way. A lot of people say, oh, soccer, you're so American. And then you know what I say? Actually, soccer is a British word. It's a British word, and it's an abbreviation for association football. Assoc, and then they added the ER, like a person who does something. The word was soccer, 1885. Soccer as well, with an A. So that's my question now. And, I defend myself like that. People say, you're using an American word. I'm like, not really. It's a British word, right? So, but we call it soccer, obviously, in the United States. Also in Australia, if I'm not mistaken, or what other places do they call it soccer?
Australia is a big one. The national team, la selección, the national team of Australia, their nickname is the Socceroos. The Socceroos, so they definitely call it soccer there. That's because football in Australia is Australian rules football, which is a little bit like a mix between rugby and soccer and football. So that for them is football. So yeah, absolutely. El fútbol there would be soccer. In Ireland as well, a lot of people say soccer. And so that's the closest country to Britain, and that speaks English, and they say soccer as well. So it's not just you guys, but you're the biggest country, I think.
Right. We have the best marketing department, right? to spread it out there. Like that. Right? Okay, now we want to hear from Ruben Palomero. Now, Ruben, you've been a personal friend of mine for decades now, we could say. We've worked together on many successful projects, and we have more in the pipeline, planificados por venir. Ruben, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm going to talk about me. I was born in 1980. I'm too old. At least hearing to Tommy. Well, when I was a kid and when I was a teenager, I was the whole day watching football, basketball, tennis, whatever sport, because I love it. I am in charge of the content at Bond Systems, and I create a lot of content in order to learn languages. But however, I didn't know anything about English until I was 12 years old, because people in Spain, when started to learn English, it was when we arrived 12 years old, more or less. But if you're working at Bond System, you have to improve your English and you have to try to speak. And that's what I'm doing. And well, in that moment, I'm starting to improve my English. And one day we have, we've been a lot of different projects. And one of these was to do a book called Speak Football. Which with different teachers at the company, we were creating specific content in order to discover all the great words, expression, whatever, that there are around the football. I think it's a great way to learn a language. We did that in that moment, and now we can go on teaching these kind of things.
Sure, because as Tommy said, you got obsessed, and then your obsession led you to now have your own radio show, which, by the way, before we go any further, let's listen to the intro of their radio show. Now, there's a book called Speak Football, which you can pick up. It's awesome, with Fernando Torres and Ruben Palomero, but also they have a weekly radio show and podcast. It's called Speaking Football. Let's have a listen to that awesome intro.
Dreams are made of speaking football.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready for the match now. After hearing that intro, it gets you psyched, mentalizado. Now, Ruben, I didn't want to let you get away with this, escapar con esta, but weren't you like semi-professional? Didn't you actually play football?
Well, not really. I was very bad playing football. But, because it's very strange to say that, because when you are trying to be a professional in Spain, it's very complicated to do that, because there is a lot of players trying to do the same that you do. Obviously, when I was young, I was in the the community side. I don't know if we can say that, but because there is a lot of kids like you trying to do the same. I mean, obviously, it's very difficult. But I played in Gimnástica Segoviana because I am from Segovia, just in el equipo juvenil. And the most important thing is you love that, you like it, you can do a lot of things. Obviously, I was very bad. I mean, I'm never going to be a professional. But, you had the possibility to discover a lot of things in this world.
There are many careers outside of just a footballer. From, the groundskeepers to physical therapy, everybody. You got really the ticket takers in a stadium, and even people in Bangladesh making the shirts. So there are a lot of people involved. And as I said in the intro, it's so much more than just a sport, is it? I mean, it's okay. You could argue it's a business, obviously, but it's also a way of life. Tommy, how did you first get into football? I mean, do you remember that first thing that said, I love this game?
I don't really know what it was. I remember watching Euro 2000 on the television, and I remember watching some of the Scottish and English football in the 90s. I think the first football game I remember, now this won't mean a lot to probably you guys, but Manchester City back in the 90s were really not very good. Nowadays, obviously, they're probably going to win the English Premier League this season. They're a very rich club. Top players play for them. Back in the 90s, they weren't. They were quite a small size, big team in terms of fans, but they weren't doing very well. And I remember they had a playoff game against a team called Gillingham. Gillingham is another English team that plays in, I think they're in League 2, so like Segunda B. Now, that's where Manchester City were. And I remember they scored last game of the season. There was a goal by a Scottish player that played for Manchester City. His name was Paul Dickoff, and he scored a last minute goal. And it was like just the explosion in the stadium. I could see it on the television. My dad, I was watching it with my dad. My dad was going crazy. He wasn't a Manchester City fan or anything, but it was just the emotion of the thing. And it's like this idea that you can connect with people on the other side of the world, on the other side of your city or your country or whatever, just through football. I'd never been to Manchester, I'd never been to England at that point, but I felt part of what was happening in this place. And that's never gone away. That's never disappeared. I can watch a game between Boca Juniors and River Plate, and I can still feel the emotion of those fans. I could watch a game in any country in the world and feel a special connection with it. So I think it's the unifying thing that I remember ever since I started watching football when I was about 5 years old.
An interesting thing too is your colors. I mean, you're like, he's from our country. That's our boy right there. So it was a mix of all that, the excitement of that last minute goal, the fact that, and I saw it. I worked in a pub during my first time I really experienced a World Cup. And I was like, I better get with the program. I better know what's going on, because this place is going to be packed every day with people asking me questions. And when I saw in the early stages, when there are 3 games a day, 3 matches, 3 games, the bar would literally fill up with like Swedish people and French people for 2.5 hours. It would just be bursting flags, singing songs. Then the bar would empty out. Of course, we'd have to clean up a little bit, clean the pints. And then Germans and Argentines would come in and fill the place with all their... And I was like, this is beautiful. This is a sense of pride, not just a pastime, something to do, on a Saturday night. But this is getting people together in a city where none of those people are from, Madrid. So you had all these Argentines who got together, all these Germans who got together. And I thought that was absolutely beautiful. Even as, taking the football out of it, just the whole connection that it gave people, people from the same country, people with the same colors, which could be the same sentence. Do you feel, Tommy, your passion has increased a bit, decreased, or kind of stayed the same throughout the years?
When it comes to my national team, it's it's increased, if anything, because we're actually okay now, Scotland. Scotland, for most of my life, didn't reach any tournaments. They didn't qualify for any tournaments. So that was difficult. The constant disappointment, you know. But then, recently they're doing okay. They played in the European Championship last year. I had some incredible memories qualifying for that and watching it on television and commentating as like in Spanish on it. I went to a YouTube channel to do a live stream when Scotland played against England. A YouTube channel called La Media Inglesa that Rubén has also participated with. Yeah. So I did a live stream with them for that game. Unforgettable memory. So for the national team, my passion's gone up. For clubs, I think sometimes there's almost a sobredosis. There's almost an overdose of football nowadays.
Sure.
On the television.
King's Cup, the other one. This, you're like, wait, so what are they playing for tonight?
Yeah, you can't watch it. Also, I think that you could maybe say at club level, it's impossible to maintain the same level of interest all the time. But certainly for the national team, it'll never go away. I think with that, because it's something that you have
that fire
in your heart, you know.
It was the only time I saw everybody in Spain. Doesn't matter what political party you're in. Doesn't matter what region you live in. Everybody brought out their Spanish flags when we won the World Cup. And I said, wow, I haven't seen a politician be able to bring the Spanish people together. But the Spanish national team managed to do it. Yep. So that's all these little things that I've seen. I like to look at it and not just the sports level, but like that other level. And it's so deep. It's such and then you see, the relationship between parents and their kids, taking their kids to the game. I mean, my daughter has had a Madridista card, a membership card, since her third day of life.
Wow. Before
her ID, she had a Madridista card. She says a la Madrid when she sees the symbol. And I think this is a good segue. Rubén, tell us about your colors and how your love of football started, because I know your colors are very different than mine.
Yeah, a little bit. Because when I told you that I am from Segovia, and the Gimnástica Segoviana has blue and garnet, and that's the same colors. When you are a kid, and maybe you have the color of your father, no? Like your daughter is going to have too. In my case, my father was from he was a supporter of Barcelona. And I'm a little bit of that, but however, it's very strange because it's changing the way I watch football. Because when I was a kid, I watched Barcelona matches, and that's what I do. And now I am changing that behavior. I play games in which I sign players, and now instead of watching matches of my favorite teams, I am supporting specific players.
So you do like a fantasy league or something like this, right?
Yeah, something like that. And for example, I prefer because I need to support someone. I can watch a game. I can watch a game in any sport. If I am not supporting someone, I can find detraction.
You don't get into it. Yeah, sure. Crystal clear.
And it's not only to be a team, could be a player.
Sure, you got to have some interest, some vested interest in it,
Exactly. It's very strange because I've been talking about that. It's curious.
Yeah, that's an interesting expression in English, to have a dog in the fight. To have a dog in the fight. I don't know how you would translate that, like basically apoyar a alguien, tener un favorito, tener una preferencia. You can say in English to have a dog in the fight. So Rubén, when he watches football, he feels the necessity to have a dog in the fight. I don't really. I can watch a game and be neutral. But
right, you just want to see some good football.
I want to see some good football, but if I see, for example, one team playing the kind of football that I prefer to see, that I like to see, I'll maybe go with them. But I can start lots of games not having any kind of preference at all. That's interesting.
I think it's very cultural because, for example, if you watch a Spanish match, the commentators they are going to tell you something. For example, you're watching a Spanish against another national side. The Spanish commentator is going to support Spain.
Of course.
And that's very strange for British people. I don't know if American too, but British people can understand that. Why are you saying that? You are a commentator. You have to be neutral. And I think it could be the difference.
Right. It's interesting, that cultural aspect. Yeah.
In Spain, there's a common thing which I've noticed, which is, I think you have the expression in Spanish, which is "se te ve el plumero," I think you say, which is like you see. In fact, in English, I think we would say you can see their true colors, is what you could say, to see the true colors.
Or you can see them coming from a mile away, desde lejos. You're like, come on, man.
That's it. But it's funny because I've heard people accusing the same commentator of being a supporter of Barcelona and of Real Madrid, and they can't both be correct. They honestly can't both be correct. So yeah,
they're arch rivals.
And they're from different cities and everything. So it's like, how can that be possible? But in Spain, I think there's this idea that you have to be strongly in favour of one team in every situation. Yeah, I notice it a lot with, not just with commentators, but in general. Like, for example, if I like a football shirt or a football jacket or something, I will buy it. I don't care who the team is. I have a Levante shirt. I have a Real Sociedad shirt. I have an AC Milan shirt. You know, I've got lots of different shirts. But Spanish people are the only country that says, tú eres de la Real. You know, you're a Real Sociedad supporter. Yeah. No, I just like the blue colour. You know,
They're like chaquetero, turncoat.
It's like, but you said on the radio that you supported Levante. I said, yeah, but you can wear multiple colors.
I also am a stylish guy, and if I like some colors, I'm going to get them.
That's it. The Real Sociedad have style. You can't deny that. It's innegable. It's undeniable. They have style. Absolutely.
Well, it's so interesting to see these two different takes, these two different perspectives. And I mean, you're both from Europe, but very, very different.
Yeah, and there is a lot of difference. So in the fact that you can buy a jersey of another team that's not your favorite one, you can do it, but obviously it's different. But it's the same when if you are you are a Spaniard and you are going to support a big team. If you are a small city and obviously you are going to support your team is playing in the second division, the third one, but you are going to support a big team. However, British people can be for a team from the third division and they are from that team. And you are going to ask you, why? But you are Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester United. No. I am from Nottingham Forest. But Nottingham Forest is in the third division right now. You have another team. No, I am Nottingham Forest, the only one. And we can understand that.
Sure. Well, it's a different, as we said, there's so many cultural things. All right, a couple questions before we wrap up the first part. I just want to let you guys know we have a bonus part where we're going to look at some of the dark side of football too. It's not all, roses and goals, but there are also some dark moments in football. We'll look at hooligans. I've always been interested in that culture as well. Maybe you guys could tell us some scandals, some vocab, more traditions and cultural things, and all that we're going to look at in the bonus part of today's show. If you guys are interested in getting access to the bonus material, that means bonus audio, PDFs with all the vocabulary and expressions, and weekly and monthly classes with me, you can go over to patreon.com/Alberto Alonso. And I'd like to send a shout out to all my patrons, especially my super duper students, Javier, Roberto, David, Jose Maria, Mila, Alex, Patricio, Edgar, and Loles. And don't forget about my interstellar students, Isabel, Paco, Diego, Carmen, and Diana. If you guys want to find out more, go over to patreon.com/Alberto Alonso. All right, well, guys, before we wrap up, before we blow the whistle on the first part here, top 3 goals in history and why? And I know this is a tough question because, well, there are videos of the 100 best goals and they're all arguably amazing. Let's see, we'll start with you, Ruben. Top 3 goals, in your opinion, of course.
Okay, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm going to say that in my opinion because I think you have to live your own story about this sport or whatever. So in my opinion, I am going to do the third one. In my opinion, is the Fernando Torres goal in the Euro Cup in 2008. It was the first time I was how Spain was going to win something because I thought Spain is not going to win any award in its life. And in that moment when he scored was great because I think football is emotion. They are feelings. You have to enjoy it. And in that moment, I remember was incredible. The second place, the Sergio Roberto goals, Barcelona against Paris Saint-Germain, is a demonstration of the everything is possible in football. You have to score 3 goals in 5 minutes. It's not possible to do that. Are you sure? This is football. You can use that word forever. Because it's incredible, because when you thought you lost something and suddenly everything changed, it's incredible. And I think it's part of the magic of this sport, that this could be possible. And the first one, obviously, in my opinion, is the Andres Iniesta goal in the final, the World Cup in 2012. And 10, sorry. And 10. Why? Because Spain was the champion, well, it was won the World Cup. Something incredible. I've never seen a semi-final before. And it's that moment when in the 116 minute, I don't remember now, that I was in Cullera with my friends watching in a very big screen. And suddenly he scored. There is hundreds of people shouting at the same time, and the feeling was awesome.
Absolutely. In fact, in the end of the bonus part, we're going to hear that goal, the narration of that goal in English. And let me put it this way. My hair is standing on end right now. Like, I literally have goosebumps thinking about it. So obviously, Ruben and I are biased with that Iniesta goal, but oh man, it tasted great, didn't it? All right, and we're going to talk about later, I want you to think about too in the bonus part, the GOAT, in your opinion. 3 for the greatest of all time as well. But that's in the bonus part. Tommy, 3 goals that will live in your mind forever.
It depends if we're talking about quality or what it means to you personally. I'm going to go for quality and I think what it means for fans. I've got 2 goals from the World Cup. So one is a goal by Dennis Bergkamp against Argentina. Dennis Bergkamp played for Arsenal. He was my favourite player when I was a kid because he was just technically so gifted. By gifted, I mean he had so much natural talent. But they were in a game against Argentina. It was very late in the game. And there was a very long pass played by De Boer, who played for Arsenal as well. Frank De Boer launched the ball forward, a very, very long pass. Dennis Bergkamp controlled it with his right foot, or killed the speed of the ball with his right foot, controlled it with his left, and then just scored an amazing goal with the exterior, with the outside of his right foot into the top corner, and it was kind of game over. And I love it because of the commentator, the Dutch commentator. I couldn't understand anything he was saying, but I didn't have to because he was just going crazy. And he obviously couldn't think of any words to say, so he just was shouting, Dennis Bergkamp, Dennis Bergkamp, Dennis Bergkamp. And he says Dennis Bergkamp about 7 or 8 times, and it's just a wonderful thing. And you know that the Dutch fans as well, the Holland fans, the Netherlands fans, they all wear orange. So it was an incredible sight to see all of these supporters wearing the colour orange in the stadium, the fact that it was a World Cup, and the beauty of the goal, what he was able to do with it. Just a wonderful goal. A similar goal as well for number 2 is Sergio Aguero's goal for Manchester City. Probably the most famous Premier League goal, I would say, because it was the last game of the season. The Manchester City were losing until stoppage time, until the last few minutes. And player Dzeko scored a header to equalise, para empatar, to equalise the game. And then in the last seconds, Sergio Aguero gets the ball and scores this goal. And it was the same thing that the commentator is almost lost for words. But just this whole thing. I mentioned Manchester City before. They had suffered so many years of just being not very good, of being, in League 2, like Segunda B, playing against these really small teams, and that was their first Premier League title. And to win it in that manner was just incredible. But when the commentator screams Aguero, it's like what you were saying a few minutes ago. I'm not a Manchester City supporter, but I could feel the hairs standing up in my arm talking about that, just the emotion of it. And the greatest goal ever, I think, is for number 1 is Diego Maradona's goal against England. He scored 2 that day. One was with his hand, the hand of God, but the other one was really, really special because he dribbled, the regate, the dribble with the ball. And also something that people forget is that the pitch at the Azteca Stadium in Mexico was absolutely terrible. The ground was really bad, and you can see it if you look closely that there's just no quality. Apparently, when the players were trying to pisar, were trying to step, the ground disintegrated. They couldn't stand properly, they couldn't move, they couldn't play the game that they wanted to play. So the fact that Maradona did what he did on this terrible quality pitch makes it even more special. And also the occasion, what it meant for Argentina. It was just after the Malvinas conflict had ended at the beginning of the 80s. It was against England. So we like to say sometimes that football isn't political. It is political. It can mean more. We would like it not to be, but it can mean more to people than just a game. And I think that's a perfect example. So to do what he did, to score those 2 goals, and basically to take Argentina to the World Cup, to win the World Cup almost by himself, was very, very special. So yeah, I would say that's the greatest goal of all time.
Excellent. Well, guys, I think we're going to wrap up the first part there saying that football is so much more. It's not just people kicking a ball around trying to get it into a goal. It's about pride. It's about passion. It's about people having fun. And we hope you're having fun with us and that you'll join us in the bonus part of today's FYI.